Let's not sugarcoat the truth. Most people won't have the courage to tell you they don't like you. They won't confront you with honesty or speak with directness. Instead, they'll retreat behind masks, polite smiles that don't reach their eyes, compliments that feel hollow, and gestures that carry the weight of obligation, not affection. I've lived it. I've shared moments and memories with people I once called friends, only to discover later that some of them were quietly rooting for my failure. That kind of betrayal doesn't come with loud announcements. It seeps in through silence, small omissions, and gestures that feel just slightly off. But here's the Stoic truth. If you remain blind to the subtle cues, if you continue to assume goodwill where there is none, you will exhaust your energy on relationships that chip away at your inner peace. You'll give your time, your trust and your presence to those who don't truly see you, don't value you, and perhaps never did. So today, let's strip away the illusions and get brutally honest. Let's talk about the hidden signs, quiet but corrosive, that someone harbors dislike for you, even as they pretend otherwise. This isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone around you. It's about cultivating discernment, protecting your emotional integrity, and refusing to be fooled by appearances. You may not like what you discover, but truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always more powerful than the comfort of denial. 1. They subtly exclude you from plans. There's a particular kind of sting that doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from silence, from realizing that plans were made, memories were shared, and you were simply left out. No call, no message, not even an afterthought. And when you finally see the photos or hear the stories or catch the laughter secondhand, the excuses follow like clockwork. Oh, it was last minute. We thought you were busy. Someone else was organizing. It wasn't personal. But deep down you know the truth. If they wanted you there, you would have been there. This is social exclusion at its most insidious. Not loud or obvious, but calculated, quiet, and designed to push you to the edge without ever admitting it outright. It's the kind of behavior people adopt when they lack the courage to tell you how they really feel. They don't want you around, but they don't want the discomfort of saying it, so they hope you'll just drift away. And the Stoic must ask, why does this cut so deeply? Because we're human. We long for connection, but more importantly, we long to be acknowledged, not invited out of pity or formality, but because our presence is genuinely desired. When you're consistently excluded from plans, it speaks volumes, more than any conversation ever could. It tells you where you truly stand in someone's life. And as difficult as that may be to accept, the Stoic knows that clarity is always preferable to illusion. I've been there too, watching from the outside as people I considered close shared moments, created memories, and left me in the shadows. At first, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I rationalized, I excused, but with time, the pattern became undeniable. I wasn't being forgotten, I was being dismissed. So I made a decision. I stopped pretending not to notice. I started asking, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Hey, I saw you all went out. Was there a reason I wasn't invited? Yes, it made things uncomfortable, and yes, some people pulled away even further. But here's the truth. When you confront exclusion, you force people to show you who they are, and that truth, while painful, is liberating. Because here's the deeper Stoic insight. You should never have to chase inclusion in a space that quietly resents your presence. Friendship, like virtue, must be chosen freely. If someone values you, they make room for you not just when it's convenient, but because your presence enriches the experience. If they don't accept it and move on without resentment. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." If you're consistently being sidelined, what does that say about the company you keep? You are not a background character in someone else's story. You are not a backup option, a placeholder, or a social accessory to be pulled in when needed. You deserve to be around people who are intentional about your place in their life. So the next time you find yourself conveniently forgotten, don't just swallow the excuse. Ask yourself, is this a one-time mistake or a silent message? And if it's the latter, let them go. Not with anger, but with clarity. Because your time, your energy, and your heart are far too valuable to be spent chasing after doors that were never meant to open. 2. They're always busy, but only with you. We live in an age where "I'm busy" has become a universal alibi. It's a phrase that signals importance, ambition, movement. It buys time. It deflects commitment. And often it masks something much colder: avoidance. Everyone is busy. Life is full, unpredictable, demanding. But pay close attention to how that busyness is distributed. Because when someone is consistently available for others, but perpetually too busy for you, the message is no longer hidden. It's just unspoken. I've walked through this dynamic more times than I care to admit. Reaching out to someone I once considered close, suggesting a coffee, a call, a simple check-in, only to be met with, "This week's insane, maybe next time," again and again. Meanwhile, I'd see the same person effortlessly carving out hours for others: group dinners, weekend trips, spontaneous get-togethers. Somehow their schedule only overflowed when it came to me. At first I told myself stories to protect my pride. They're going through a lot. Maybe I caught them at the wrong time. I shouldn't expect too much. But the truth persisted, quiet and clear. People make time for what and who matters to them. No one is ever too busy for someone they truly value. Here's where the Stoic lens becomes invaluable. We must view relationships not through what people say, but what they do. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." The same goes for relationships. Don't trust their declarations of care. Observe how that care is practiced or not. The harsh reality is this: constant busyness is often a gentle rejection in disguise. It's avoidance with a smile. Rather than face the discomfort of telling you, "I've outgrown this friendship," or "I no longer feel close to you," they offer a socially acceptable substitute: the schedule. And we, not wanting to confront the truth, accept it over and over until one day we look up and realize we've been benched, not by accident, but by design. This isn't about blame, it's about awareness. I've been on both sides. There were times I avoided someone not because I hated them, but because I didn't know how to say, "I'm not the same person anymore. This connection no longer feels aligned." But being on the receiving end, feeling like a forgotten appointment in someone's calendar, taught me a powerful truth: clarity is kinder than delay. So what should the Stoic do when faced with this kind of neglect? First, accept what is. If someone continually defers you, don't chase their attention, don't guilt them. Simply recognize that your place in their life is not a priority, and that's okay. But here's the pivot point. Don't allow their disinterest to distort your self-worth. You are not defined by how often others make time for you. You are defined by the presence you bring, the intention you carry, and the depth of your character. Your value isn't negotiable based on someone else's availability. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." And the subject here is you. If someone doesn't take the time to know, appreciate, or prioritize your presence, then their absence is not your loss, it is your liberation. So next time someone tells you they're too busy, don't argue, don't plead, simply observe. Let their patterns reveal their truth. And in that silence, redirect your energy toward those who don't hesitate, who make time, who follow their words with presence. Because life is too brief and your peace too sacred to be penciled in as someone's last-minute option. 3. They give compliments that sting like insults. There's a peculiar kind of compliment that doesn't lift you, it lingers like a bruise. The words sound sweet on the surface, but when they land, they leave a strange weight in your chest, as if you've been praised and insulted in the same breath. That's because you have. We've all encountered it. Someone looks at your work, your appearance, your effort, and says something like, "Wow, this is actually really good for someone like you." They smile, act supportive, even friendly, but something in the tone, in the phrasing, unsettles you. And the mind, being as sharp as it is intuitive, catches the message instantly. You weren't expected to do well. Your success surprised them, not because it was extraordinary, but because it came from you. I recall an experience like this vividly. I had poured myself into a project, long nights, focused hours, the kind of creative discipline that Stoicism teaches us to honor. When I finally shared it, someone close to me responded with, "This is better than I thought it would be." There it was, a dagger wrapped in silk. On the outside a compliment, on the inside a quiet undermining of my capability. And that's the subtle cruelty of backhanded praise. It pretends to recognize your effort while planting a seed of doubt about your worth. These comments aren't just careless, they're calculated. Whether consciously or not, they serve to maintain a hierarchy. You tried, but don't get ahead of yourself. Here's where we must pause and reflect stoically. Why does this bother us? Because as humans we crave recognition, but as Stoics we must be cautious of it. True self-worth must come from within, not from the opinions of others, especially not those laced with condescension. When someone offers you a compliment that's dipped in comparison, sarcasm, or subtle disbelief, they are not admiring you, they are asserting control. It's a power move. It allows them to acknowledge your effort just enough to appear kind, while keeping you one step below them in the social hierarchy they've quietly constructed. It's not always malicious. Often, it's born from insecurity. People see your progress, your resilience, your growth, and it unsettles something within them. They offer a compliment, but can't help slipping in a reminder that you still shouldn't outshine them. This is their way of protecting their ego. But here's the Stoic response. Do not internalize these judgments. Do not hand your self-perception to those whose praise comes with strings attached. Epictetus taught us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And how you react to these disguised insults will define whether they take root or pass like wind. Now this is the part that takes courage. Call it out not with anger but with clarity. Ask them, what do you mean by that? Let the question hang in the air. Watch how quickly the illusion of good intent dissolves when they are asked to explain what they really meant. People who give these kinds of compliments rely on your silence to keep the power dynamic intact. When you confront it, with composure and calm, you dismantle that game. You reclaim your authority not over them, but over how you allow yourself to be treated. The Stoic does not seek applause, but neither does he accept disguised scorn. So here's the truth. A genuine compliment uplifts, recognizes and affirms without needing to remind you of where you came from or what you lack. If someone's words make you feel small under the guise of admiration, it's not your heart that's fragile, it's their ego that's showing. Let go of the need to be liked by everyone. Instead, value those rare souls who speak truth with kindness and praise without control. 4. They constantly joke about your flaws. We've all known that person, the one who seems to find endless amusement in our quirks, our missteps, our imperfections. They call it humor. They laugh, smirk, and say, "I'm just messing with you." On the surface it appears harmless, just friendly teasing, a way of bonding. But when the target is always you, and the punchlines are always your shortcomings, the joke starts to wear thin. I remember being close to someone like that. Every interaction was laced with commentary about how I dressed, the way I spoke, or the work I was doing. At first I played along, thinking it was all in good fun, But over time the pattern emerged with painful clarity. The jokes were never about my strengths, never about shared experiences. They were precision strikes aimed at my insecurities, and though they came wrapped in laughter, they cut all the same. This is where the Stoic perspective becomes crucial. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." But this isn't about passive suffering, it's about clarity. When someone repeatedly jokes about your flaws, they're not practicing affection cloaked in wit. They're testing your boundaries. They're probing to see how much disrespect you'll tolerate before you push back. It's a subtle form of dominance, camouflaged by culture, disguised as comedy. Society trains us to believe that if we can't take a joke, we're the problem, that being sensitive is a weakness. But the Stoic doesn't fear discomfort. They seek truth. And the truth is, allowing yourself to become the butt of every joke is not humility. It's a quiet surrender of self-respect. I had to learn this lesson through pain. By laughing along, I became complicit in my own diminishment. I taught them how to treat me. But the moment I started to set boundaries, to respond not with laughter, but with firm presence, something shifted. Their tone changed, and more importantly, my perception of myself changed. Here's what I've learned. You are not weak for defending your dignity. You are not overreacting for rejecting a joke that wounds. Real friends don't build their joy atop your discomfort. They don't need to drag you down to feel tall. The ones who care will uplift you with their humor, not weaponize it. So next time someone jokes about you, pause, ask yourself, is this truly funny, or is there something more beneath the surface? If the answer makes you uneasy, trust that feeling. Call it out. Say, what exactly do you mean by that? You'll often see how quickly humor evaporates when the target refuses to be silent. Because here's the Stoic truth. Life is far too short and your mind far too valuable to be reduced to a punchline in someone else's game. Choose company that reflects your worth, not those who undermine it with a smile. 5. They disappear when you need support. It's easy to show up when the music is playing and the drinks are flowing, when life is smooth, when laughter is effortless, and no one's asking for more than a good time. But when life turns dark, when grief knocks, when anxiety suffocates, when loss steals the ground beneath your feet, that's when you learn who's truly standing beside you. In my own life, this truth revealed itself not with fireworks, but with silence. I was in a season of unraveling. Something personal had shaken me to my core, a crisis that made the world feel heavier, colder, slower, and naturally I turned to those I considered close. I wasn't asking for solutions, just presence, a message, a call, a "Hey, I heard, I'm here." But what I received was absence, long, echoing absence. The same people who once laughed with me, who once confided in me, who once called me their ride or die, were suddenly too busy, too distracted, too gone. Work's been insane. I'll check in next week. Sorry, I just have a lot going on. And they never did check in. That silence was louder than any betrayal. It wasn't just neglect, it was revelation, a brutal unveiling of how shallow some relationships truly were, even when they had once felt deep. And that's the thing about hard times. They don't just test your strength, they test the strength of your bonds. When someone disappears in your darkest hour, they're not just absent. They are telling you, in action if not in words, your pain is too inconvenient for me. But here's where the Stoic finds clarity, not despair. Seneca once wrote, "A friend is someone who is always the same to you, whether fortune favors or frowns. When someone vanishes the moment your life becomes less convenient, they were never your friend. They were merely participants in your comfort, not your suffering." True friendship, real human connection, requires discomfort. It demands presence not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And yes, showing up takes effort. Compassion takes courage. But those who disappear in your time of need aren't just busy, they're making a choice. A choice to protect their own peace at the expense of yours. And you're left standing in the wreckage, not only dealing with your own storm, but also with the aching realization that the boat you thought you shared was never built to carry you both. So what does the Stoic do with this? He sees, he accepts, he doesn't beg for support, nor does he chase those who abandon him. But neither does he lie to himself. He recognizes that absence is a message, and he receives it with clarity, not bitterness. You may feel the urge to harden your heart, to trust no one, to become cynical. Resist that. The world already has enough walls. But do let it teach you discernment. Let it refine your circle. Let it clarify who deserves your energy, your loyalty, your time. The people who stay, who show up with a warm word, a steady presence, or even a quiet acknowledgement when everything's falling apart, those are your people. Protect those relationships, cherish them, nurture them. As for the others, let them drift. Because you are not a burden for needing support. You are not weak for reaching out. You are human, and anyone who makes you feel otherwise has no place in your inner life. In the end, we all face storms, but we must choose wisely who we allow on our ship. Some will help you navigate, others will hide below deck and disappear when the waves rise. The Stoic chooses truth over illusion, and sometimes that truth is found in the silence of those who should have spoken. 6. They gossip about you behind your back. Few things unravel trust as quickly or as quietly as gossip. It doesn't shout, it doesn't confront. It whispers, it slithers. It takes something sacred, your story, your struggle, your vulnerability, and hands it off to an audience you never agreed to speak to. Not out of concern, not out of care, but for entertainment, validation, or a fleeting sense of superiority. Let's be clear, gossip isn't harmless. When someone talks about you behind your back, especially someone you've confided in, they're not just sharing words. They're compromising your dignity without your consent. They're building a narrative where you have no voice. I remember once confiding in someone I thought was a true friend. I was going through something personal, raw and heavy. I opened up, not for attention, but for relief, for the comfort that comes with being understood. They nodded, they listened, and within days my story had been repackaged, distorted, and passed around like social currency. By the time it made its way back to me, it wasn't even my story anymore. It was a caricature built for cheap laughs and casual judgment. And when I confronted them, they shrugged. It was just talk. Don't take it so seriously. But here's the Stoic response. What kind of person makes entertainment out of someone else's pain? And what kind of friend betrays in secret while smiling in public? Seneca wrote, "One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood. Gossip is the opposite of that. It breaks understanding. It turns shared experience into performance. It reduces real connection into disposable content." People often say, well, I only said it because I was worried, or it just slipped out. But words don't slip by accident. Gossip is a choice, a conscious act, and it says more about the one spreading it than the one it's about. Even more alarming, the people who gossip to you about others will eventually gossip about you to others. It's a pattern, not a moment. You are not the exception. You are simply next in line. And that's why, from a Stoic standpoint, we don't just listen to what people say about us, we listen to what they say about others. That's the training ground for character. If someone is quick to dissect someone else's life behind closed doors, they've already shown you their values or lack thereof. What do we do when we discover this betrayal? We don't retaliate. We don't start our own whisper campaign. We simply withdraw with intention. The Stoic does not beg for trust. He does not argue to preserve a false connection. He simply removes himself from the theatre of deceit. This kind of betrayal cuts deep, but it also clarifies. It shows you who respects your silence and who weaponizes it. And that insight, though painful, is priceless. So here's the final truth. If someone gossips about you, they were never on your side. They may have shared your table, your memories, your secrets, but they never shared your loyalty. Let them talk, and let their absence become your peace. 7. They avoid physical contact, like you carry a weight they don't want to hold. There are things people say out loud, and then there are things their bodies whisper when they think no one's paying attention. And few things speak more clearly than the absence of physical contact. This isn't about romance. It's about connection, trust, warmth, human proximity. Whether it's a handshake, a friendly tap on the shoulder, or the casual closeness of two people comfortable in each other's presence, physical contact is a language in itself. It communicates familiarity, acceptance, and emotional safety. So what does it say when someone consistently withholds that form of connection from you? I've been there. I remember someone I worked closely with on paper. We were amicable, respectful, even collaborative. But every time I reached out, whether a handshake, a pat on the back, a natural gesture, they would recoil, tense up, shift away. It was subtle, easy to brush off, but over time it became undeniable. They weren't like that with others, just me. At first, I tried to rationalize. Maybe they're just not a touchy person. But then I observed them laughing freely, leaning in, embracing others with ease, and then I understood. It wasn't about their personality, it was about me, or more precisely, how they felt about me. This is where the Stoic must stand still in discomfort and observe without judgment, because the absence of touch, when selectively applied, is rarely neutral. It's often a silent barrier, a way to communicate, I don't feel safe with you, I don't want closeness, I don't trust this bond. And we have to ask ourselves the hard question. Why do we keep ignoring signals our bodies already understand? Why do we explain away the stiffness in someone's posture, the subtle step back when we move closer, the awkward tension in what should be a warm exchange? Because we'd rather believe in politeness than confront rejection, but the Stoic seeks truth, not comfort. Here's the hard truth. When someone avoids all forms of contact with you, but not with others, it's a statement, not a coincidence. They may not dislike you enough to be openly cruel, but they don't feel safe enough to be close. And in that distance, a whole story is being told. We must also examine ourselves. There may have been times when we did the same, when our body instinctively resisted contact with someone whose presence made us uneasy. It doesn't always come from malice. Sometimes it's just a lack of trust, a discomfort unspoken, a disconnection that we've been too polite to name. So what do we do with this knowledge? First, we don't retaliate. We don't force closeness where it's unwelcome. Instead, we become observers, calm, aware, stoic. We respect their space, but we also respect ourselves enough to recognize the truth behind the distance. And then we decide with reason, not resentment, whether this relationship is worth maintaining, because if someone cannot bear to share even the most natural human gesture with you, it begs the question, is this really a connection or merely a performance of one? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others, unless with some benefit to the common good." So take the signal not as a judgment of your worth, but as an insight into the state of the relationship. Don't internalize their discomfort. Simply acknowledge it and choose peace over pretense. You deserve relationships where presence feels natural, where gestures are met, not dodged. A friend whose hug is hesitant, whose hand recoils, whose body stiffens around you, is telling you something their words won't. And the Stoic? He listens, not just with ears, but with attention, and then he lets go with grace. If you've recognized even one of these signs, it can feel like a gut punch, like the ground you were standing on wasn't as solid as you thought. And that's okay. Painful clarity is better than comfortable delusion. The Stoic does not fear truth, no matter how sharp it cuts, because with truth comes freedom, the freedom to stop begging for crumbs of respect, to stop contorting yourself for validation, and to stop calling people friends who quietly root against your growth. You may be tempted to get angry, to confront, to prove your worth, but remember, the goal isn't to fight for space in someone's life, it's to reclaim the space within your own. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So let this be your filter. If someone's presence disturbs your peace, undermines your confidence, or chips away at your sense of self, step back, not with spite, not with drama, but with dignity. You don't owe anyone endless chances. You owe yourself clarity, boundaries, inner stillness. Let their absence reveal what their presence was always lacking. Let their silence speak louder than their excuses ever did. And most of all, don't let their subtle rejection turn into your self-doubt. The ones who truly see you will never need to disguise affection as insult or loyalty as convenience. They will show up in word, in deed, in silence, and in storm. So, walk forward, with less weight, with fewer but truer connections, and with the quiet strength of someone who has finally stopped chasing approval and started honoring their own worth. That is the Stoic way.